I'm the Director of Children's Ministry here at UUCP. I don't think I often get applause just for having a title. That's cool. I want to start by reminding you something. This sanctuary is a space, and it's a place. And you all are doing very, very good at using this space and this place. You're using it to sit and practice being still and listening. But you've probably used this space for other things, right? How many of you have ever gotten really wiggly and shifted around and had to stand up in this place? Okay, more than 5 of you, y'all, I've seen you. How many of you have ever danced in this space? How many of you have ever fallen asleep in this space? How many of you have actually intentionally fallen asleep in this space? Dylan? Okay, good. This space can be used in all sorts of different ways because, yes, it's a room with walls, and I would say 4 walls, but this room makes math really hard sometimes. This space gets to be used all sorts of different ways, and I want you to remember the ways that we can use it. Rev Christine reminded us that there are activities in the back. Mixed Jez is back there. There's coloring and crafts and things. There's the seats that you all are in. There's space to run around and play and dance. There's this blanket here if you need to sit in a different way, maybe crisscross applesauce, or maybe you need to lay down more comfortably. But you are welcome to use this space in the way that makes it make sense for you, okay? And right now we're transitioning some of our children's ministry space. So if you need a sensory tool, you need a squishy toy or something, please feel free to go to the sensory room by the restrooms and grab something, anything you want. And it's not an age thing, right? Adults are allowed to play with toys. Kids are allowed to use notebooks, right? Make sure that whatever you're doing brings you fully into this space. And I'm going to tell you a story about space and place. When Kai was 12 years old, the Olympics were held in Innsbruck. And Innsbruck sounded really cool. See, Kai had only really ever been around their city block and in their apartment building, and Innsbruck sounded very exotic. Kai imagined palm trees and water. Innsbruck's in Bavaria. That's not what it looks like there. But Kai would find that out in good time. So one day when the letter carrier came and had a package that was for Kai, it was from the Postal Service and said that Kai, a 12-year-old, could be a pen pal with someone from Innsbruck. You could imagine how exciting that was. They would get letters addressed to them, they would have packages come to them in the mail, and they could write things to this mysterious person in Innsbruck. So Kai filled out all the paperwork, checked that they could only speak English, but that seemed like it was going to be okay, and sent it off in the mail. In a week or 2, Kai got their first letter from Marty. Marty lived in Innsbruck and talked about their house and what it was like and what the Olympics coming would be like and how excited they both were. And for the first few weeks, they would write back and forth, and it was all about the excitement of the Olympics. But then that stopped being so exciting because when you're 12, you don't necessarily have a good concept of what the Olympics is. And after you talk about winning for a bit, there's not a whole lot more to talk about. And winning, as we all know, can be kind of boring. So they started to talk about places. And Kai decided to describe where they lived. And they talked about the apartment building, how many houses were in it, how many homes and families, and their busy city street. And Marty wrote back. But Marty wrote back about castles and winding rivers and mountains and tall trees. And Kai was absolutely enthralled. These letters became the most amazing thing. And Kai felt like, well, if Marty is writing me about castles, I'm going to join them and write about dragons. So Kai wrote about beautiful dragons who lived in the place. And then Marty saw the dragons and said, oh, well, there must be beautiful royalty who wears phenomenal clothing and velvet dresses. And Kai wrote back about ships that sailed all over the world, and Marty wrote back about the treasures that fell from the sky. And this went on for years. The two of them built up this amazing, amazing place. But they also got to know one another. They wrote about who was in their house, what was hard, what was easy, what they were working on in school, and all sorts of things. But the whole time, adding to this picture of this beautiful, amazing, fantastical land. Okay, by the time Kai was 19, they had figured out that the castles were real in Innsbruck, and the treasure falling from the sky probably wasn't. But that land was still there, and they still knew every detail of the place Kai and Marty had created. Now, it wasn't until they were much, much, much older, and Kai had moved to New York, that they were able to meet up. And when they met up, they went out for coffee, and to be honest, they were both a little nervous because they felt like they knew each other from their letters, but they had never been in the same place, and it was a little scary, and New York was still so bustling and wild. And when they sat down together for coffee, they talked about the magical place. Oh, do you remember we made the tree that changed colors and the leaves became gold and yellow and purple and orange? And Kai said, actually, if you go a little north from here, there's places where the trees do that in the autumn. And Kai would say to Marty, do you remember the castle where you said the door went up and down with an old drawbridge? And Marty said, that really exists, but our castle was purple and so amazing. And they got lost in memories of the place, and thinking about that space brought them closer to one another and let them talk about how their lives were and who they were. But then the day wore on, and it was time to leave the coffee shop, and they looked around and remembered that they were in New York in a Starbucks. And that didn't feel so great. But they each left, giving each other hugs, saying how glad they were to have been able to be together for real. And they each went back to where they would spend the night. And they each took out paper and pen. And they each re-entered their real place. The real place where Kai and Marty's friendship lived. And where it would live forever and ever and ever. The place they had created together. Thank you all so much for creating space together. And remember that you are so, so powerful and so, so very loved.